Okay, let me invite all the panelists for the last session. We have again Dr. Ali Elgari, and we'd like to welcome another great scholar of Amanie Sharia Board, Dr. Mohamed Amin Qattan. Please, Sheikh. And we have with us Sharafie, okay, from Amanie Advisors to be on the stage. What time we have to leave? 12:15. Okay, welcome again to the last session of the day. Our topic is very much evergreen. It's very much the very essence of doing Islamic finance, which is governance, Shariah Governance. We cannot talk about compliance and audit unless we have a very clear-cut governance framework to start off. Though we have started 30 years ago without having Shariah Governance framework, but at the back of our mind, our great-grandfathers and grandfather, when they set up this industry, they have had that kind of idea to do it according to governance, but they have not been able to put as we are able to do it now. So Dr. Elgari, we wanted to see our industry whiter than white, meaning to say we are very much compliant, that beyond any contest, beyond any dispute by the stakeholders. How do we achieve that from Shariah Governance perspective?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately,
yeah, perhaps you use that.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونستعينه ونستهديه ونسأله تعالى التوفيق والسداد. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Of course, governance is the most important aspect of keeping the quality of Islamic banking, because as a product provider, banks they are required to meet certain quality, and even Sharia boards as a providing a service. This service also has to maintain certain quality, and the only way to do that is to have this in the form of rules. And governance, Sharia governance, is it is extremely important. And alhamdulillah, now everybody is concerned about this aspect, and central banks are, as a matter of fact, one central bank asked me, do you think it's a good idea that we form a central Sharia board? I told them, forget about central Sharia board. There is nothing to be gained and nothing to be lost by not having it. Focus on Sharia governance. And alhamdulillah, this is what is happening in many countries. Unless we have a focus on Sharia governance, then the quality will deteriorate. And as the saying goes, bad currency kicks good currency out of the market. The more the quality deteriorates, everybody follows, right? Because it's a matter of cost. Maintaining high quality is more costly than offering. And these services, the consumer cannot tell whether it is really Sharia compliant or not. Unless there are rules that can be monitored by central authorities and adhered to by everybody, and makes all the providers of these services on one level, then the quality will deteriorate. Governance is extremely important, and I need not overemphasize this, because alhamdulillah, everybody now is saying the same. Everybody is concerned about this, and it is developing everywhere, alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Elgari, for that very encouraging statement that everyone is looking and trying their best to be, if you like, whiter than white. Sharia, being Sharia, we have to be compliant, but we have to be a role model when it comes to the governance in terms of processes, in terms of integrity, in terms of due process to be followed for issuing fatwa, for even to say that we are wrong, we have some procedure to follow through and to deal with the tinted income, by accident, we are not compliant. So everything should be put in place, processes, committees, and responsibility and accountability to the stakeholders, either to the regulators, to the public, of course, to ourselves as the individual in this industry. Dr. Qattan, thank you again for being able to join us at the last session, very important session. Again, you have become the Sharia advisor for many, many years in many parts of the world. Perhaps if you are kind enough to share with us some of the experiences, good and bad experiences when it comes to governance, something that you can share so that people can take away from Sharia scholar perspective what is so bad about this practice and what is so good about the other practice, which reinforces the meaning of governance, from integrity, from due processes, and from everything that the management, the board directors, and the Sharia scholars themselves are supposed to uphold and embrace.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Thank you, Chairman. And I'm very happy to be with you. I'm sorry I wasn't here this morning. Actually, if I can add a little bit with Dr. Elgari's thoughts, any governance without sharing the many other authorities will not be succeed, really. For example, the central banks or any other authorities. Whatever you are internally, the company or the bank or whatever, Sharia board, you regulate everything of the governance. Without external help, you will still, let's say, playing inside the internally, in the company or in the bank. You need the help from other authorities to understand you exactly your purposes, not to, force you to do so, but to help you, to cooperate with you. And I think this is very important if you wanted to regulate your internal governance in any Sharia board or any Sharia, let's say, structure.
So you need all relevant stakeholders to be part of the Sharia governance.
Exactly. Mostly with these authorities, mostly.
Okay.
Foreign ministries, let's say central banks.
I have one case, a real case. I don't want to mention the name of the bank or the country. The tinted income from the default payment, the penalty charges could go up to few million. So the board has decided anything to do with penalty, they have to decide on their own. They don't bring to the Sharia board in the process flow, which is wrong. And they have decided on the penalty amount, and they have decided to transform that penalty amount to their bonuses. Good fatwa, okay? What do you think? If that happens?
No, I can answer that with another case.
Okay.
If you have very strong governance inside the bank or institution, and a country, I cannot name it now, and they, reported to the central bank. The central bank rejected 100%. He said, I cannot understand what is murabaha. Give me loans, and that's it, liabilities. Yeah. So whatever you have, without understanding, between you and central bank, it's still a big gap to bring a real governance, really. Yeah. This is the idea. So the case is how they roll with you.
Yeah. I wanted to ask if that case was...
I would like to top all these examples.
Okay, go ahead.
What we read last week here in Dubai.
Yeah.
About
some
community murabaha.
Fake broker.
Yes.
Who used to deal with banks, just paper transactions. There was nothing, no commodities, no sale, no purchase, no nothing. Yeah. This is the, excuse me. This is the worst case, which we can imagine when we have a lack of governance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I wish somebody really creates a catalog of all these things that show how necessary, how essential governance is.
But why it took too long for us to discover after a few years of doing this from the provider, from the counterparty who used their platform? I mean, what went wrong? I mean, if I can be a bit direct and blunt, if you like.
Of course, I don't know how long it took for these people to cheat, and I hope it was not very long.
Yeah.
But يعني, of course, I mean, very simple. It's it shows that we need more supervision, more interference of the central authorities, and making sure that people are doing what they are claim they are doing, and providing the same quality expected from. It's a consumer protection, the final analysis.
Okay.
I wanted to add, if you allow me.
Please.
Sorry. Actually, we need, in addition to the supervision, we need also training people. Sometimes anybody wanted to, review or control, and he cannot understand what are these people doing. It's very dangerous. I give you one example. I used to work with one Kuwaiti company, financial company, and they said I was Sharia controller, i.e. I have to review everything daily on daily basis. So at that case, the GM brought to me, general manager brought me an article about mudaraba and said, please, can you review this mudaraba? From the first second, I told him, look, it's been written here, murabaha. Oh, yeah, you are true. So he even couldn't recognize from the first bottom line, it's a different contract. So this is why the Sharia controller or Sharia board, like Doctor, they can from early beginning understand these. What about the people who never been with the Sharia, in contact with the Sharia, say from central banks or other authorities?
But for me, if I can, Sharafie, give us a few minutes among the old scholars to discuss.
I'd like to top this off.
We cannot ask the Sharia board to review everything. We have the people in place. They are paid. They are given the job. They are given the KPI. Why didn't anyone, take the issue and argue for that? Yeah. Sorry, Dr. Elgari and Dr. Qattan.
Yes. Last week we were reviewing some bank their activities during the year, and there was a report in Arabic. And one of the products they provided, it says tawariq. You know, tawariq is the name of a vehicle. VW tawariq.
And the tribe in the north of Africa. Tawariq, the tribe,
So I said, this is auto finance or what? No. It's tawariq. What tawariq? It is tawarruq. But translated from English to Arabic with somebody who doesn't know nothing.
Okay.
Last case, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Last one. Brother, last one, please. I used to be with one of professors. I'm sorry about everybody. He said, in our murababa.
I'm a professor as well.
He said, in our murababa, I said, Professor, we have either murabaha or mudaraba. Murababa, I can't understand it. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sharafie, you are attached with the Sharia advisory company. You are not part of the banking. You are third party from Amanie perspective. You are third party entity to look into Shariah governance.
Sharia, risk Sharia audit, and so on and so forth. Second is policies or framework, which I find it to have to better govern their activities and operations. And third and last is third-party oversight, which with the likes of regulator and external auditor and also Sharia advisory firm. So these elements can lead to a good ecosystem for Sharia governance when they complement each other. But not many jurisdictions have this luxury of where there is regulator coming in and push and do review for banks and funds. So we at Amanie then come in and then we put our ideas and controls in place to ensure that at the end, the end objective is fulfilled and achieved by complying with the Sharia ruling and fatwa made by Sharia Board.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps in your own experience in many parts of the world, in Malaysia before and now in this part of the world, and Europe and Africa, as you venture into that market, what would be the biggest resistance, if you like, if I can use the word resistance, coming from the counterparty client while developing a very thorough and watertight Sharia governance framework?
I think the challenges or restrictions coming from the clients or banks, I think is first is obviously the resources or costs involved to employ capable persons to actually manage and oversee the Sharia governance, because Sharia Board cannot be doing the daily business of banking. So there must be someone or a department that can actually help and assist Sharia Board in overseeing all the Sharia-related matters in an institution. So this is the first one. The second one would be the challenges is the lack of knowledge and awareness that this is important to have to ensure that all the screws are being tied up. There will be no consequences like what all the sheikhs has mentioned earlier, where it can go up to the court to decide where lack of governance can lead to loss of money, loss of client as well.
And reputational risk.
Yeah, that's, and the very most important one is reputational risk, where banks or Islamic bank are portrayed as Islamic, but then they claim they are Islamic, but they are not doing things through Sharia compliant manner. So this will have huge impact on the brand of Islamic for that particular institution, as well as the other institution in Islamic financing industry.
I have one common question to all the three panelists, Dr. Elgari, Dr. Qattan, and Sharafie. Nowadays, somehow media and stakeholders and of course regulators, they were saying, Sharia scholars, people like Dr. Elgari, myself, Dr. Qattan, we have to do more. We have to do more. We have to be taking the locomotive of the train to ensure Sharia governance. We cannot be at the passenger kind of seat. We have to be leading the Sharia governance in terms of thinking, mindset, putting the right infrastructure, monitoring, revising, updating, upscaling. So we have seen that in the media, in our own community. What do you think, or how do you respond to this new expectation from the stakeholders for Sharia scholars to be more active in leading, not only in monitoring, but leading and championing the Sharia governance framework? Perhaps Dr. Elgari first.
I think it's a fair expectation, and I think it is definitely incumbent upon Sharia scholars and Sharia boards to lead this process, because it's usually not very helpful to impose a governance regime on institutions, but to help them develop it internally and under the supervision of the relevant authority. But it is, in the final analysis, their responsibility. Therefore, I think it's not only a good idea, but it's something necessary, and we have to really take the burden of this responsibility and lead the way to a better governance of Sharia governance for banks. And furthermore, it is usually very helpful to cooperate between the institutions to develop this kind of rules of governance. But again, central authorities, either central bank or CMA or whatever, they should not distance themselves from this part. They have to be involved one way and another without being imposing their own ideas on the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Actually, thank you, I have. Actually, very important point, this one. But we need two things. One of them just been mentioned by Dr. Elgari. I have, in one country, I can't mention it, we spend a lot of time with the central bank. They ask us to prepare a local certificate for Islamic banking and finance. We spend a long time cooperate with them, putting rules, comparing with IOP and other certificates. At the end, they reject all ideas, they brought their own staff, and they became with a very weak certificate. So very important, we want something from the Sharia board, you have to cooperate with them properly. Listen to them, okay? Because they have their own experience within the and don't put yourself very high level, not listen to these people. At the same time, you ask them to be more governance. Okay. Number two, internally, which is I really proud to say they need a sufficient backup staff in the company. Like, mashallah, in Amanie, I feel myself very confident because they have their backup staff, let's say backup scholars, who can, you depend on them, they can review all of this. If you put any ideas, any suggestions, they will transfer it directly to regulation or governance internally. So we need such, elements very important internally. Thank you.
Sharafie?
I think both the scholars of an institution and also the person responsible in managing Islamic finance business need to work in tandem to ensure that Shariah governance is preserved, and also because in any institution the highest level of authority comes from board of directors, so maybe because employees it's quite hard to interact with board of directors, maybe Sharia board would be the next suitable to have a like a dialogue, or so that it can come from high up to the down below.
Okay. One last question before I open the floor, and the answer should be very quick and straight to the point. As we speak, if we come across any Islamic financial institution, as we speak today, they have not yet developed the Sharia governance framework, what is your advice to them?
What are you waiting for?
Yourself?
You will miss the train.
Okay.
They should.
Huh?
They should develop a Sharia governance framework.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Khurram from Standard Chartered Sadiq. I have two questions for the esteemed scholars sitting here. Number one is on the, so we've seen the rise of regulations over the last 5, 7, 8 years after especially after the financial crisis. Now we've seen two models. One is where some regulators would define macro guidelines, broader guidelines under which the industry has to operate. And on the other extreme, you see some regulators becoming so prescriptive that they would get into micromanagement and getting into defining how much pricing banks should set and how much LTVs they should set and how much fees they can charge. I'd like the view of the esteemed scholar on where do they feel the balance lies, one. Number two, on the role of Sharia scholars, this is the theme here of this session. What we've also seen, and I won't again name the country, but what we've seen is the evolving role of the central Sharia board, the central Sharia authority. Historically, Sharia scholars have been a stakeholder in the ecosystem. So you've got the bankers, you've got the boards, you've got regulators, you've got Sharia scholars, each playing their role. And the role to me of Sharia scholars is they're really the trustees. They are the ones who are translating the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're narrating it to the industry so that the industry can know what's halal haram and follow the right path. But increasingly what we are seeing is that the Sharia scholars are being given the role of a regulator, where they are dictating how many members should a Sharia board form, how many Sharia boards should they sit on, how many years of experience should they have. To me, that is the role of a regulator, not a Sharia scholar, because this is not a matter of halal or haram, whether you should have 15 years of experience or 20 years experience. So I just like to hear your views on that.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I'll come to you, Dermot, in a bit. There are 3 gentlemen just now. Yeah, yourself. We go for the elder first.
Assalamu alaikum. Again, I am Sadakat from Sharia Compliant Medical Center. I have very serious question. not only on my part, but general public.
Yeah.
In the UAE Islamic banking industry, now trend is on very higher side, that on the top management level, even CEO level, non-Muslims are being appointed.
Yeah.
Right? In the past, I observed that on the lower level, IT side or technical side, non-Muslims were kept. But now trend has been changed, and all higher level in one bank, 5 top position, consumer head, credit head, finance head,
Yeah.
even HR head
Mm.
are non-Muslims.
Mhm.
So I want to
Yeah.
take opinion from all of you individually,
Yeah.
that in the light of Quran and Sunnah,
Mm.
as we understand that Kafirun
Yeah.
are not our friends,
Yeah.
how they will implement our Sharia governance and Sharia compliance level. This is very serious
Okay.
in terms of general public. So what is
Okay.
your opinion,
Okay.
all of you,
Yeah.
that in Quran, in the light of Quran and Sunnah,
Inshallah, we have the answer to that.
to which level we can?
Yes. Okay. The third one.
I'm Shah from Noor Bank. My question is about, I would like to know the views of the scholars on the Sharia governance itself. Is it should be universal values which can be applicable to any part of the world, or it should be customized according to certain region, jurisdiction, like that?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Hi, Dermot O'Reilly from Credit Agricole Corporate Investment Bank. I have a view, just a question on what are your views on training scholars? Do you think you should have internships on boards you sit on?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can open only to 4 questions, and we give everyone 2 or 3 minutes the most to comment on collectively or any particular question.
Yes. I'm very happy that we are closing in 5 minutes, because it appears that the questions are coming harder and harder.
Okay.
So, in reference to Khurram's observation, I think every country has different experience, and they come up with solutions based on their experience and what they see as problems that need to be solved. But in the final analysis, results will come out, and people will see that whether this system or that system is better, and whether it is Android or Apple.
Android.
But the jury is still out, as they say.
Yeah.
And what is the second question?
Uh,
Khurram's. Yes. Yes.
mm.
I believe that the Sharia part of the business consists of many levels, and the Sharia scholars should be focusing on as you said, yani, fatwa, telling the institution whether this halal or haram. This is this should be their main focus. But they are not the only members of the team. The team should be much larger, and part of it is concerned about other aspects of Sharia, but involving the Sharia scholars in this may be problematic, I believe. Okay. And the second question is from our friend here who is in Sharia hospital. صح? So he's saying that some positions are filled by non-Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, this is a professional. Yeah. This is, يعني, it's a function, it's a job, it's a profession, and if someone can deliver the goods, if someone can do the job better than someone else, يعني, I think we should not hesitate. ما في مشكلة يعني. This is something that is related to qualification and to abilities more than religion. You see, because if we have, for instance, murabaha. Murabaha has rules and procedures and contracts and which all supervised and developed by Sharia board and approved. So implementation itself is nothing. I mean, it's a career thing. And furthermore, we should not be too sensitive about these things. You know, I'll tell you something which will come to a surprise to all of you, I'm sure. You know, all the scholars discussed a question: can we accept fatwa from non-Muslim? Of course, the majority of them, they said no, but some of them, like Ash-Shatibi, who is one of the greatest usuli, okay, he said, why not?
Yeah.
Because we have our sources, we have the Quran, we have the Sunnah. Whoever comes with a fatwa, we can compare it to the sources, and if it is correct, we accept it. Why not? You see? Now we have an institution called Islamic Bank. We wanted to succeed. We wanted to be more Islamic. We wanted to make profit. We wanted to provide the best services. If this can be delivered through the management or leadership of a non-Muslims, ahlan wa sahlan. Nepotism is not good.
I think Dr. Elgari mentioned about Ash-Shatibi. He was living in Granada, Andalusia. And we go to that history, Tarikh al-Andalusia in Arabic. Many of the fund managers, many of the financial directorate, if you like, in that particular part of the world, in that particular era, they are not Muslim. Because they are, I mean, I don't want to, you look into the history, because government of Islam, whatever, the government of whatever, Andalusia, has employed them because they can turn around the resources, manage the resources. What is more important is the Shariah Governance framework. You put that on the stage, everyone must follow the governance framework. Even Muslims, sometimes they're not following. Zakat just now, you know, from the income, they make it their bonuses. That's why religion is not really important, the governance is important.
I'd like to just add thing, you reminded me of one thing. If you read the history of the Abbasid Caliphate, you will realize that the Abbasid Caliphates always rely on Jews in managing the treasury. The treasurer is Musa ibn Dawood ibn Madri ايش كلهم Jewish. Why? They are more qualified. Hard luck. What can I do?
Okay, Dr. Qattan first.
All right. About the first question, whether they are macro level or very specific, this is the environment of each country, different from one country to another, and there is no problem. And we should be, I mean, really cooperative with the local environment to follow that one. The second one, the Sharia board should be, it's been discussed in many theses about Islamic banking a long time ago. One of them, my thesis about a specific number of Sharia board members, specific regulation, specific meeting, and it could be between both of them, the Sharia scholars as well as the Sharia controllers, sometimes we call them. And now IOFI standard, they cover most of this, your concern. About the question here, actually, whenever I give any lecture worldwide, I tell them this is not an Islamic IE for the Muslims only. This is a tool. This is a tool. Take it or leave it, whether you are, regardless about your religion. And I really, from Sharia perspective, I discussed this because it's one of the questions being concerned for myself a long time ago. I found that the Sharia, the scholars, they discuss it specifically on the Mudaraba contract. They ask the same question. Can we put the Mudarib, non-Muslim Mudarib, i.e. the implementer who implementing the business? They said yes, and they give just one condition. If there is, a committee helping them, this will be better. From Muslims, it will be better. If not, if he's professional and he has his capability to do so, everybody said no problem at all if he is not a Muslim. And I wanted to ask a question. If you wanted to build your house and you have your own son, he has his restructuring company, and another people who are not Muslims, they are very professional. You will bring who to build your house? No, come on, he's not a Muslim. No, come on, he's not a Muslim. No, come on, he's not a Muslim.
Okay, we deferred. Okay, I have to defer the debate after the closing. Are you done, Sheikh?
Done.
Okay, Sharafie.
Yeah, to answer Brother Shah's question, whether it's recommended to have a global standard Shariah governance, I think it's good to have a good standardized practice across the globe, so that one country can implement or have example of what is good, so that they can implement in their countries. But also some countries doesn't have that capability, so they need to customize. So in general, they can have it's better to have a general or global Sharia governance framework, but it'd be better if we can also customize and to fit the said countries to better suit their laws and regulations.
Thank you. And the last question from Dermot. I think we are the scholars, we are more than happy to give our time, resources to train the young scholars, but we need the bank, the practitioners to allow some of the junior scholars to sit in the board and to learn, because Dr. Elgari and I, we have done that in Oman. We have seen that after attending 6 meetings, it could be more, it could be less, we have transformed the mindset of the young scholars. Because young scholars are not facing the deficit of knowledge, they're facing deficit of confidence and the mindset. So if we can open up, either in UAE, in Bahrain, in everywhere in the world, we can see a number of great scholars in the making. So we have to open up the door, either through central bank, through our own board. There's no excuse but to do that training. Please, Sheikh.
I just want to mention that you see, unfortunately, being a graduate of a Sharia college does not qualify you to work as Sharia. Neither a graduate of the legal law college or business college, whatever.
Yeah.
This is a sort of a new profession.
Yeah.
And the only way to keep it going and reproduce yourself is through apprenticeship. Let's face it. In Saudi Arabia, the 2 banks now, they have been running for a few years a program like this, where they invite 2 younger scholars to participate in the Sharia boards meetings, and effectively, and they give them training, and they give them very generous honorarium at the end of the 2 years. And alhamdulillah, they produced results. They produced results. Because again, it's just like there are many professions that can be, you qualify through apprenticeship.
Yeah.
You have to work with the people who, and I think this is a reply to Dermot. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the session, and perhaps the end of the forum of today's session. I would like to conclude my moderating session and my event as well by quoting perhaps the quote by Martin Luther King Jr. when he was quoted of saying, "There's always the right time to do the right thing." And we have to transform ourselves to do the right alternative investment products, the right sukuk structure, the right fintechs and Islamic finance coming together, the right governance, and the right working together to have interconnected industry to bring the good thing for the society. With that, I would like to thank you for your time, to thank the panelists and speakers, and perhaps we meet again in the future. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.